This program is a presentation of
Old World Exploration.
Sacramento history.
My name is April Adachi. I was born in Sacramento, and then I grew up on 4th Street right in J-Town. My father had a dry goods store right on the corner between L and M, right on the corner on 4th Street. The redevelopment, I thought they were going to make the town look beautiful. I said, what happened?
In the years following World War II, redevelopment changed the face of cities all across America. Sacramento, California helped pave the way for that change by pioneering a redevelopment blueprint that became a model for the nation. Sacramento also demonstrated the devastation of redevelopment by removing hundreds of businesses and thousands of residents from the face of its own city.
So in many ways, Sacramento is responsible for leading the charge for urban renewal in America.
This is Sacramento's West End, a section of the city rich in history, but decayed by the passage of time. Much of
the passage of less than 100 years?
Cleared away by the massive clearing effort by the Sacramento Redevelopment Agency.
It had a lot of power. At one point, the Redevelopment Agency had so much money flowing in from the project development that it was called Little City Hall. And it was the City Hall that had the money that you could do something with.
I expect the Capitol Mall project to demonstrate to the people of this city and to other cities what can be accomplished through redevelopment.
This video on Sacramento, California, brought to you by request from viewer Wyatt. If you have any locations you'd like me to look at, please let me know. Interesting, the urban renewal aspect rearing its head. I've been looking a lot lately at urban renewal and the effects of that, and how it potentially was a much more coordinated effort to erase the cities of the past. So without further ado, let's check out Sacramento, California. Thanks for being here. The city of Sacramento, California, you can see here, founded in 1849, having that same start date as San Francisco. Making complete sense as we look at the geography here. You can see Sacramento not far from San Francisco. And as always, I like to give you the population demographics. Modern day, we're looking at 500,000. If we go back to the turn of the 20th century, we are just under 30,000, not a lot of people. And a lot of the buildings that you're going to be seeing were said to have been built in this time frame here, 20, 30,000, 40,000 people. And just sticking with the Wikipedia write-up on Sacramento. Now, I've had people say, why do you use Wikipedia? I'm not using it as a source for truth. I'm using it as a parrot source, basically. Wikipedia parrots the mainstream version of events. Most of these references are coming out of historical society websites and libraries and things like that. So this is what we are being led to believe about history and about these locations. And the Sacramento one, really interesting. I'll stay on this for a little bit here before we get into the visuals. We have a history starting with the pre-Columbian period. I like how they say here, perhaps thousands of years these people were in this area, and that's of course how they lived. That's how they want us to think. Their diet was mainly acorns from the plentiful oak trees and fruits, bulbs, seeds, and roots gathered throughout the year. Another condescending narrative of our false past, in my opinion. Skipping ahead to what they call the American period here, starting in 1848, and those early days in Sacramento, you have the gold rush narrative taking root. You can see down here, residents of Sacramento adopting a charter in 1849, as we saw. The oldest incorporated city in California, we are told. Now, I wanted to highlight this because we have a very silly narrative, in my opinion, from those early days in Sacramento. 1850, we have a flood devastating the city. Of course, the city's only really a year old, so who's living there at that time anyway? A bunch of squatting gold rush workers. As a result, the city builds a levee, and it becomes known as the Levee City. However, a month after it was completed, that levee was breached again during the first major storm of the season, and the city flooded again. Well, would you look at that? Then they built a new levee, but it also broke, causing more flooding of the city. This is really comical when you get down to it, folks. And then between October and December of 1850, cholera epidemic kills 1,000 residents, including the mayor and most of the physicians, and 80% of the population leaves town. On November 2nd, 1852, 2 years later, we have a fire known as the Great Conflagration, burning more than 80% of the structures in the city. The narrative repeats, folks. And then we're told after the Great Conflagration, within a month now, 761 structures were rebuilt, many of them in brick. And I want you to think back to the urban renewal that we saw going on as another destruction process a century later, really. And just when you thought we were done, the population gets up into 10,000 area, and then we have the Great Flood of 1862. I don't know what to tell you. We're not done. And of course, from there, we're off to the races. They talk about the building of the state capitol, which we'll get into. But I think this is important as well. From 1862 until the mid-1870s, Sacramento raised the level of its downtown by building reinforced brick walls on its downtown streets and filling the resulting street walls with dirt. Where have we heard this before? Previous first floors of the buildings became basements. And there you have it. You can look at the Wikipedia write-up if you want to get more details. Let's get to the visuals. And I'll start with what they say the first structures built in the area were. That's Sutter's Fort. That's how they like to seed the narrative for us. We have a depiction from 1850 of the first flood. I think maybe the second. Hard to tell. There were so many. You can even see the style of buildings being depicted here. But absolutely ridiculous. We have a reset narrative going on here. False start, as they like to say. And this one, I think they'll say, was from 1860. About 10,000 people living there. Yet another flood. All sorts of difficult false starts going on in Sacramento. Despite that fact, I have a bird's eye from 1890, so several decades later, just giving us an idea of the style of buildings existing in Sacramento at a time when we're told there's about 26,000 people living there. And despite that fact, and despite their lack of access to any sort of power tools or hydraulic technology, we have all of this architecture intact by 1890. And this is what, of course, we're being told existed. So, just a little evidence for you of the underground, Sacramento Underground, below the street level. Street level will be up here. You can see the brick arched structures. So that is a lot of infrastructure for an early time period for such a small city. And you're going to see a lot of postcards in this presentation. If you see a postcard, usually it means I was unable to find a photograph. So this is a depiction of the Sacramento Bee, the press for the region. Of course, in my opinion, all of the press from the past controlled through a lot of these secret societies, making sure that the information that goes out to the people is in some sort of controlled form. This is a bird's eye from 1857, at a time when we're told there's about 10,000 people living there. So you tell me if this makes any sense to you. Certainly doesn't to me. The Buffalo Brewing, one of the majestic old world breweries. I did do a video on breweries some time ago now. But you would be surprised if you haven't looked into the breweries. You'll be surprised at what we find here in North America and how large those structures really are. And an early depiction again of what looked like very old structures. A lot of them probably being repurposed and re-roofed. And this one, a part of the World's Fair at San Francisco Exposition in 1915. If you haven't looked into that, I did also do a video on American expositions. Certainly an important part of understanding the old world narrative, these expositions, and what was really going on. What I suspect was a presenting of a false timeline, of false history to the people after finding these cities and dusting them off, if you will. Massive structure. Buffalo Brewing. Oh, sorry. There's a look at the Capitol building, which we'll get into now. And this beauty, said to have been built between 1861 and 1874, at a time when the population of Sacramento is less than 20,000 people. And they have that, of course, great conflagration in 1862, to make the entire story even that much less believable. And they'll tell us this was the original Capitol building before they decided to build a new one, supposedly from 1860. Because that was easy to do apparently in the 1860s. And if you haven't wondered, I mean, you gotta wonder how they're doing all this work without electric light. You know, all these enclosed spaces, they're dark, they're damp. If you ever worked in construction before the buildings have been powered up, I mean, we have extension cords and work lights and all that kind of stuff. These people, are we to believe they had candles or gas lights? Really need to think this one through, folks. All this being done at a time where they didn't have that. It's a comical part of the narrative. If it wasn't so sad, the wool they've pulled over our eyes, it's quite stunning actually to think that this was put together before they had any sort of natural lighting. Electric lighting. It's absolutely absurd. And it certainly throws a wrench in the timeline as well, as far as what they would have even been capable of doing. You would have had so much smoke damage on any sort of work above your head trying to get any of this done. So the bottom has already fallen out, folks, but there's another hole in the bottom of the bucket for you. And the state capitals really are a narrative buster as well. I think that's worthy of a video on its own. I have touched on it from time to time in my videos, but maybe a collection of state capitol buildings would whet your appetite as well. The coffered ceilings is just incredible work. Absolutely impeccable. And supposedly done in the 1860s. As America's coming out of the Civil War, they're building this in Sacramento in a city of less than 20,000 people. Give me a break. Of course, we are provided with a small handful of construction photos to throw us off the scent. This is the first one. And of course, these usually come from official sources. This is coming from the public library, placed in locations where people will easily come across them and not really think twice about it because we're being given visuals to prove their timeline. Another construction photo. What do you think? I think there's all sorts of forgery going on in the past. In the present, to make it look like the past. These are the types of buildings that they had in Sacramento, California. This postcard's from 1898, and these are the kinds of buildings that they have at a time when, of course, there's less than 30,000 people living. You wouldn't see this in the modern day, anything close to this in the modern day in a town of 30,000 people. Not even close. Not with cranes, not with heavy machinery, with modern electricity, modern technology. Yet, of course, we're to believe that this was just something that was easy for them to do at the time. And you get these lovely postcards with the stonework in the background. Wondering if these mustache gentlemen have any idea where they are or when they are. We had a state fair in Sacramento. This is one of the main building, I think, at the state fair. getting a bit of what they'll call the Spanish colonial style. And just as a quick aside, I wanted to alert you to this Bannister Fletcher character, or Sir Bannister Flight Fletcher, father's son, responsible for a history of architecture here in the Western world. I'm going to be diving further into these gentlemen, but it looks to me like, much like Hubert Howe Bancroft was setting the narrative for the history of the west coast of North America, that these gentlemen have been used in the Western world to give us a false timeline of architecture. And just a look at some of the beautiful residential architecture in Sacramento. The Machinery Hall and Tower as a part of that state fairgrounds. And one of the early gentlemen, J. Mason Haight. Interesting name. And then you can see, of course, his affiliations to all of the secret societies at the time. All par for the course. The Pavilion, again, fairgrounds. Not a lot of photographs. Really, actually surprised me a little bit. I thought I'd see more. But the postcards at least are giving you that visual. Lovely examples of architecture. It must have been something, domed and roofs and coned roofs and turrets. You try to add that to a building design in the modern day, and the cost just skyrockets. It's just not feasible economically unless you've got the deepest of pockets. And of course, the streetcar narrative firmly intact here in Sacramento. I really wanted to find a photo of this one, but I couldn't. A very interesting entryway here. The Schindler Building. I suspect that the roof has been replaced and there was something much different going on up above. That's my hypothesis. One of the schools, the grammar school, Presbyterian Church. Now I suspect, again, on a building like this, I think a lot of the mansard roofs and corner domes have been removed and roofs have been flattened. You'll see these buildings still standing in a lot of towns, but I think there was a concerted effort to de-techify and flatten and take that edge, that beautiful edge off the buildings as a way to hide the true past. We have a handful of fire stations. Nice looking. Here's another look at this one. You can see the... I'm pretty sure that's stonework, brickwork. Hard to tell, though, in postcard form. And there's the technology that they had available to them at the time. The little steam engine that could. Alright, the Cathedral of the Blessed Sacrament. So construction on this one starts in 1887 and is completed by 1889, at a time when the population is less than 30,000 people. This is what they were capable of building. In 2 years, by the way. Any contractors out there want to let me know how long this would take you to complete? And of course I want you to do that without any source of power. And I want you to finish the interior like this. So just put together a quote for me and put that quote in the comment section below, and I'll get back to you. Absolutely laughable narrative, like so many of the other places we've seen. 1880s, Sacramento, California. Beautiful, beautiful structure. And of course having a dome. Remember, the candles would have made all sorts of scorch marks as you're working up in the inner reaches of the dome. Alright, we'll keep moving forward. I laugh. You hear me laugh a lot in these videos, but you have to. When you looked at enough architecture and you've seen enough of the silly stories, it becomes quite laughable. The Church of St. Francis. And this is 1894. Probably the same builders that put that cathedral together, because they had some really nice interior finishers in Sacramento in the 1890s. And you have, of course, the pipe organ. Absolutely exquisite. Certainly not something we do in the modern day. Old world, old world, old world. We really need to wrap our heads around this, guys. This is our history is a lie. Our timeline is a lie. And it has been hidden from us intentionally. We need to take it back. We need to understand there's much more to the story here, and we are a large part of that story. This is the City Hall. No slouch, indeed. Take a look at the quality of craftsmanship here. The acanthus leaves at the top of the columns. Stunner, absolute stunner. We'll move on though. The county hospital. I suspect we've got a little bit of asylum narrative going here, but I couldn't find anything. I couldn't get any deeper on this one. Apologies. But it just has that feel of a place that you would go. The county hospital. We're looking here at the courthouse and the Hall of Records on the left. Again, had trouble finding any more on that one. I did find the newer courthouse, we'll be told. I think when you see this narrative, I think both these buildings were standing at the same time. That's my hypothesis. And here is the courthouse in the modern day. Now let's go back to the old photo and go back to the new one. And what do you notice about the difference? We're looking at a lot of the upper reaches here having been changed around. Flattened off a little bit, dulled a little bit in some cases. Unless, of course, that may be around the back, but that's a common occurrence you see from old to new. And of course, I always like to say, if you're from the area, please don't hesitate to get your 2 cents in. If you really got your hair up because you don't like me questioning the history of your area, go ahead, throw it in the comments. That's fine too. But I think it's about time we question history, guys. Here is the modern courthouse. And if you dig a little deeper into that PBS video that you saw in the intro, you will see them constructing this as a part of the urban renewal project in the 50s, I believe. And there's that courthouse again. The Crocker Art Gallery. This one founded in 1885. And of course, the same hands here, the same finishers without their electricity. But take a look at the quality of architecture. 1885, 25,000 people generously at that time in Sacramento, California. Impeccable finishing, absolutely over the top, putting statues on the top of your newel posts. Everything coffered, everything detailed. Unbelievable. Moving on, we have the Elks Building, another one of the gentlemen's societies responsible for creating and upholding the narrative, the false narrative, in my opinion. Working your way up to the top of the economic ladder through your fraternity associations. 1926, we are told that this one was built. I don't know, it doesn't look like a depiction of a brand new building to me. Got trees right next to it. Hard to say. And there's another photo, apologies for that. There it is in the background. Definitely looking like we have some energy collection going on here. The governor's mansion. Who is the governor of California? I don't even want to say it. Don't even want to say it. Beautiful. And this one giving us a little bit more. This one. Take a look along the ridge lines. Take a look at all the tech in the upper reaches here, and then you also have, well, I don't know, maybe you call it a greenhouse. What's going on here on top of this structure? There's so much more to the story. Of course, they provide us with a plaque and telling us that this was built in 1877, less than 20,000 people there at the time. Okay. Whatever you say. Whatever you say. We'll keep moving forward here. It's a good size file. And we'll get to this one here on the right. The one on the left I couldn't find, but no shortage of these little domed structures, two-storied structures. I'm sure they all got steamrolled during that urban development period. The old high school had a dome. I looked for a photograph of this one. Couldn't find it. That's a stunner. Anyone ever see this thing with the dome on top? And apologies if you're getting any background cat noises. Got a few kittens running around right now. This apparently was a high school, built in that lovely 1870s style that they did in Sacramento. Very early time period again too, right? So that's probably the same high school. Can't really tell though. A series of hotels now, and this is again where I suspect they've been flattened, these structures, and you can see the bulging going on. It makes you wonder if there were any little domes on top, mansard roofs, things like that. Really starting to notice it in my research. Several hotels, streetcars. Alright, here's a great example of what I'm talking about. This is the Travelers Hotel. Still stands. Here it is in the modern day. So what have we done to it down through time? We haven't made it more magnificent. If you look at this line here, we've got 5 windows beneath it. 5 windows beneath it. This line here is the new roof line. This upper floor with all of the beautiful ornamentation that you can just barely make out here in this postcard has been removed. And we get that. And that's what they do to these old world structures, folks, just to throw us off the scent. Still marvelous structures, but nowhere near what they used to be. Because of course, if we all realized how beautiful these things were, many more of us would be asking questions. The Windsor Hotel. And you can see what we've got going on here. Another gentleman's organization with their symbolism. Beautiful structure again. And in background too, we've got a very steep steeple-looking church that I don't think I found in my research. And of course the lights above the streets as were part of the old infrastructure. And a bunch of gentlemen and their club getting dressed up and their pictures taken. You can pause it if you want to look for some of the names. See if you know anybody, if anyone's grandfather, great-grandfather's in there. I think the one in the foreground here is the modern version of their club. There's the Elks one side by side. We have a few more looks at some of the architecture here before we move on from this structure. So nice architecture. There's the base of that Elks one as well. The People's Savings Bank, that curved corner door on the corner as well. Looking for evidence of lower entries, exits. Don't see any here. Post office. Not the first post office. Or were there 2? Here's the original post office. Something else, isn't it? Do you expect that for a post office? Sacramento, when will they tell us this was built? I couldn't find it. I'm going to say 1880s. 30,000 people. There's another look at it from the other direction. There's the canopies, the classic awnings over the windows, over the openings. This is a nice looking post office. That's an old world banger as far as I'm concerned. And here we have a photograph taken outside the front of that lovely building. Check out the stonework. That's impeccable. The arch. Beautiful work. It's a damn shame they tore these things down and they tried to hide them from us. We have windows here and the railings as well, so this thing goes lower. And of course they told us they did that there. They told us they raised the streets. So they're not even hiding it from us in this case. Something had to be done. This postcard from 1906, this is the free library because they stole it. They took it for free. It's an old worlder. Anytime you see these sort of fences along the ridge line, I think that's a giveaway that we're looking at an old world structure. This is the modern library. No slouch. The Pythian Castle. That's all I could find on this one, either. It's a bit of a mystery, Sacramento, trying to dig into some of this stuff. And here they're telling us again, we have a gentleman's club hall, and I think they're talking about this towered building here. I'm not sure. Hard to tell. Kind of buried in the past as well. Lost to progress, let's say. The State Bank looking much like the post office. Again with the railing out front. There's another look at it, and this time they call it the Sutter Club. Little dome on the corner, very, very hefty looking stone and ornamentation. Multi-storied, basement, old world, all the way. 100%, in my opinion. There is a modern Sutter Club as well. That's the entrance to that. But we'll move on. We're getting to the end of the file here. We have a rail depot. Looking here, let's take a. We do have a photograph of this one, nice and clear, and giving you a sense of the architecture, the quality of architecture, and then of course all of the tech going on. This one I like to show. I always like to show why on earth in a postcard would you cover the building you're trying to feature. You think you'd have the ability to change that as you're making it into a drawing. The Watson Grammar School, we saw this earlier as well. A nice looking building. You can even see here the columns and arches at the entry. This is sort of the mansard style I was talking about, where what they'll often do with these is just level the building right off here. Take all the mansard roof off, take the tower off, level the building here, dull down any sort of flare, and keep the bones of the building and repurpose it as a warehouse or what have you. It's going on everywhere. This is the one I talked about earlier, the Weinstock, Lubin and Company building. It's confusing as well because we see it in several different forms here. Let me turn that for you. So here's the, I don't know if it's supposed to be the original form or what's going on. This is one version of it. Certainly not the version we just looked at. Here's another version of it. This is what we saw earlier in that postcard street view with the domes. And I think we were just looking at this with the columns here. And we also have this one. And I don't know if it's just supposed to be a rendering or if it was supposed to have existed. Again, maybe local. We'll know more about this. And there's that domed one again. And I think they get into this as well in that urban renewal video, and they end up building this piece of junk. No offense to the people that worked on this structure. All due respect to construction workers here on this channel, absolutely. But this is what urban renewal brought us. And you're getting an idea of what was taken from us. So, this has been a look at Sacramento, California. This has been an old world exploration. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, and comment. I believe we are in the process of remembering who we really are and casting off the shackles of illusion. Until next time.